I know some of you might be having whiplash from this week because I'm doing 5 chapters today. It's like half of Leviticus, a little bit more than half in just one week. Uh, it's going to slow down. I don't want to give the idea either that there's not much of significance or meaning to Leviticus. There actually is a lot. The struggle for us today in 2021 is that much of this book is strange, it's uncomfortable because we don't follow the laws of Leviticus because we're not under that covenant. We don't follow these laws as they're instructed, which again we'll talk about kind of how we're supposed to approach the law and even how they did in that time in upcoming kind of weeks and as we keep going through. But these laws are strange, and we don't carry them out as they are written, many of them. And there have been different models of how to approach this. Like some are moral laws that you do no matter what, and some are just civil laws that only applied to that time, and some are priestly laws that were only for the priesthood. And personally, I find kind of those categories a little artificial. Um, I think a more helpful category is that these laws are here for a particular people in a particular time, and they're there not as legislation as much as they are wisdom. What does it look like to be the people of God in that setting? And as wisdom, the people at that time were to take that and go, well, how does this work in this circumstance that isn't directly, you know, applied or isn't directly stated or spoken to by the laws that we've been given? And so what we see is, as we go through the Old Testament, the prophets, for example, kind of taking and using and building upon the principles that are here. Again, how do we understand the law today, these Old Testament laws? It has to come through, let's say, two grids are helpful. One is Jesus' great commandment. Rabbis in his day, what's the greatest law? Jesus goes, hey, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. The law and the prophets, everything hangs on those two commands. So when we're reading Leviticus 11 to 15, for example, with all of its strangeness for us, how might this be telling that people how to love God and love one another? That's one grid. The other is Jesus himself. Jesus said all the scriptures, and he was referring to the Old Testament here when he said that, are about me. So what does it say about the character of God? Because Jesus was the exact representation of God's being. And all that said, you might still be going, if you've read these chapters, but Graham, what animals to eat post-pregnancy instructions, skin diseases and mold, what to do's? Okay, that whole bodily discharge chapter, this is why I don't read the Bible. Or this is why I don't read Leviticus. I get it. And you were going, what do those things have to do with loving God and loving others? It does. How the people of Israel showed their allegiance and revealed the character and nature of the God, you know, that's what this is about. So, for example, remember that if you've seen the earlier videos, especially on cleanliness and uncleanliness, that's not related to sin. It's about life and death. And God is the author of life. And death has no association or connection to him. And so how we treat anything that has to deal with life and death reflects on God. Again, and we go, I just don't see that. It's like our culture doesn't see it that way, or we approach things of life and death in different kinds of ways. This is what the context was in that culture, not just for the nation of Israel, but the nations around them. Remember, Israel was to be a light to the Gentiles. They were to be priests to the nations surrounding them. And so how they lived, how they interacted with what the culture around them saw as life and death connotations and associations mattered. coming into God's presence unclean. Again, that's not sinful. That's not rebellious. That's I'm associated. I've kind of touched something, or I've been kind of had an association with a loss of life or death. That's something that's for me. And to come into God's presence as the author of life, culturally there's a lack of respect. There's a just not a true heart appreciation for who God is and for his nature, his character. And so it's a way that of misrepresenting God, even if it's just to the individual worshiper themselves. So how do we read Old Testament laws like this? What does it say about how God called people to love him, to obey and reflect him, to live in covenant loyalty? What do these laws say about how to love others, reflecting God's values, God's character, God's kingdom, to use a New Testament uh, concept? How do we live out a love for others in a way that reflects God? And so I want to encourage you, don't just gloss over these laws as irrelevant because I don't have to follow them. I don't get them. But consider, take some time, make some effort to say, how, how might they have shown the people of that day how they were to live in loyalty to God as his covenant people? And then make the step. Say, okay, God, I may not deal with mildew things. I don't have to go to, get Graham to come over to look whether or not there's mold in my house. Call an actual contractor, professional. But here's the question for us. How is God calling you today in this culture, in this setting, to honor and respect God's character, to live in loyal love towards him, because he is showing us his loyal love each and every day and wants us to experience that and to express that. 15 chapters of Leviticus in a week. I hope you made it. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today, would you know his peace? God bless.